Definitely. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Hello. Thank you so much for having me. This was a very interesting talk so far. Learned so much from all the speakers so far. Quite interesting and engaging. And I'd like to just, give a quick introduction about myself and get started here. So, um,
I think maybe if you,
um,
yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna say,
yeah,
yeah, perfect,
yeah.
mate. Good to go.
Fantastic. All right. So just a bit of myself. My name is Lumi. I'm the senior engineering management manager at Seven Shifts. At Seven Shifts, we are a partner for restaurants. We help restaurants with technology. Right now, we're focused on scheduling, and we help all the restaurants also with like an employee life cycle, all the way from onboarding to training, and also scheduling. So um, currently, I focused in engineering management in the last 7 years. But prior to that, I played different roles in the engineering team from a junior engineer all the way in Bell, Canada, all the way to a senior engineer at a company called Bespoke Metrics, and also a tech lead, which was my first exposure to engineering management. So that being said, I like to just touch on, some things around engineering management that's important to me, and also, you know, some, how I got deeply into engineering management. So at Bespoke Metrics, I had this opportunity because of the company had this internship program. I had this opportunity to go to University of Waterloo on a 3 month cycle to hire interns. So that was my first exposure to engineering management, where it was this revolving door. Well, it was exciting for me. I learned a lot, and then from there, I joined Synapse as the VP of Engineering. My role there, an early stage startup, my role there was to grow the team, drive culture, and help with scaling the team. So I grew that from like, 0 full-time engineers to 25 engineers, and before I moved to currently at Seven Shifts. So in my experience so far as an engineering manager, I just kind of listed out some things that I think are very important. I think it's important for you as an engineer, as a manager, to be able to motivate people around you, motivate your team. When we have to execute, you've got to be able to like help people stay laser focused on what we're working on. And then I think it's also important for you to be able to negotiate. So, negotiate with your team, negotiate with cross-functional teams, being able to listen to people, and also, you know, being able to state your case, and being that, representative for the engineering team. I think it's a very important role to play. So I also think it's important for you to be able to drive ideas. So it's these ideas might not be from you, but if someone in your team comes up with an idea, I think it's important for you as a leader to be able to like, help shop it around, help drive it, to learn more about it or go deeper into it, so you can derive some value from it. I also think support is a huge. Um, it's important to think about support as an engineering manager as well. Um, the engineers want to be empowered. They want to be able to execute, and they want a level of autonomy as they execute. So it's important as an engineering manager to think about your role as a support role as well, where you can create guardrails in the sense that you show up when you're needed, and when you're not needed, you're out of the way. So I think it's a very important function as a leader. And I think it's very important for you as a leader to grow, right? And uh, uh, I think as you grow, you've got to think about your role as a selfless role. So you're thinking about how people in your team grow as well. Thinking about people, your engineers, being able to derive growth plans for them, being able to execute on those growth plans, and being able to like support them as they go through that plan. It's a very important piece of the whole puzzle. And in that regard, I really think um, for you to be able to deliver, for you to be able to like execute efficiently, it's important for a team to be able to have some form of values that govern them. And it's important for these values to be derived in a very collaborative manner, so that way everyone kind of owns it and everyone's a custodian for it. But more importantly, it's very important for the engineering manager, the leader of the team, um, to be that values custodian. So that way you can, keep everyone honest and, reference what's important to us as a team. So if you all notice, the title of my talk was about how to get better. But I just, wanted to touch about engineering management first of all, and then go a bit deeper into how to get better. And as we go deeper into that, I'll touch on one of my experiences as a leader, and what I learned while I was trying to get better. So for an engineer, I think I've kind of minimize everything into this five important steps. I think it's important for you to learn. It's important for you to build stuff, break things and keep on building. And then it's important for you to ship it as well. So, I think, building is very important. You can keep doing things. However, shipping is a very important like milestone as well, because you get good feedback. You get feedback on the work you're doing. And then more importantly, you're able to deliver more value by, acting on that feedback. So learn, build, ship, rinse and repeat. I think just having this, intentional approach to doing this, would really help you as an engineer to get better. And then I also think it's important for you to have something I call a value delivery mindset. So as an engineer, the natural thing is to always want to build, which is what I just talked about earlier. However, it's always important to also think about, adopting a value delivery mindset. And the reason why I say this is because um, it, I feel there should be a clear separation between building things and also delivering value. And then this is when engineers start, learning about products, learning about why they're doing what they're doing, and how it affects people's lives. And if you notice, I kind of put this value delivery mindset versus complexity here. And what I think here is, um, I tell my mentees a lot, I tell my peers a lot that personally I feel the work we do and the complexity of the work we do as engineers, does not directly correlate with the value we deliver, as engineers as well. So sometimes I find that simple and elegant, solutions can deliver so much value as opposed to like robust and convoluted, solutions. Robust in the sense that's very, very functional, but sometimes convoluted in the sense that there's just so much going on. And I kind of made this reference to this. I learned recently about Kermit the Frog and how on the original Kermit the Frog was made out of an old coat belonging to Jim Henson's mother, and his eyes made from ping pong balls. So this just links to this idea of value delivery, and how the complexity of of how Kermit the Frog is composed has nothing to do with how people enjoy the experience of Kermit the Frog. So it's something I hold really dear to myself. So I'd like to talk about something else that I embarked in this my journey of trying to learn. When I was at Bespoke Metrics, I wanted to go into philanthropy. So I thought I'll take 20 laptops to Nigeria, which is where I'm from, in West Africa. Take 20 laptops back there, look for people that love technology and mentor them and teach them how to code and see what comes out of it. So this is me in 2017, went back to Nigeria, and I got about 70 people, that wanted to like join Sparkplug at the time. But I had about 25 laptops, so I had to limit it to a smaller group. And this was the first group, and then they went ahead to, I got at my house where they lived in, temporarily, and we were off to the races. We started teaching, we started mentoring, and we used Slack, and we just kept on like collaborating. And I was teaching all the way from Toronto. However, fast forward to a year later, one of the engineers ended up in the UK, in London, working with a startup called Calypsa, which has got acquired by Motorola. And all these guys are all over the world now, like as successful engineers. But the reason why I'm talking about Sparklog is how they've actually impacted my life as well. So in my journey to kind of help people, what I've come to learn is um, they've in turn helped me as well because I've learned to be a leader. I've learned to be a mentor. I've learned to take feedback. I've learned to have range of communicating with people at different skill sets in an engineering team. And most importantly, I've learned to empathize and understand people and study the best way to interact with different people. And in my journey in Sparkplug and mentoring these young people, I also learned about learned about learning and where I come from. We used to like standardized learning and like um, people teaching us and then having tests based on what we've been taught. And the measure for learning is based on how we perform on those tests. So what I ended up learning at Sparkplug was, you know, based on our first and second cohort, um, the rate of assimilation had no correlation with how well the students grasped the content. In fact, what I ended up learning was, the slower learners, had a thorough understanding of the content. So sometimes speed has nothing, doesn't have much to do with, assimilation and how well you learn. So, focus on getting the quality of the content as opposed to like rushing through things. Or if you're not learning fast enough, don't get worried about it because that's just a process. So that's something that I learned and I thought is important for me to share. And then another thing I learned, and I think as an engineer, that I think can really help everyone is, you know, given the fact that we spent our lives or we spend time building things for people, there's this risk of, you know, being very confident in our strong opinions. So I think as engineers, if we're able to let new information influence our existing opinions, I think it gives us room to grow. And I think this is something that we have to practice and work on ourselves. But having that room to grow by working on ourselves, you know, really helps people give us new ideas, and then those new ideas can actually influence, what we already know, which is where the magic really happens. Also, I think it's important to treat failure as feedback. I've failed a lot in my career. We could have a separate talk for this about where I failed and how many times I've failed. But I guess, these events have been very important for me because I've treated them as feedback and I've taken them back into my career. And, I think they've been very important for me as in my growth as well. So, you know, I also think there's some tactical things that we can do as engineers to get better. When we mentor people, and we have this investment in making other people get better. There's a lot of upside there. Also contributing to open source. I think that's very powerful. And sometimes there's this imposter syndrome where we think we're not good enough to do meaningful stuff that's peer reviewed by a lot of engineers. But I think what has really worked for me in the past, and when I was much younger, and what has worked for mentees of mine is by slowly just dipping your feet in the water by doing some documentation or fixing small bugs or doing just doing little things and like low hanging fruits in open source projects. That's a good way to get into that stuff. And also, I think it's very powerful to teach people. And when you teach, there's so much value there in helping other people. But also, when you teach, um, there's this learning that goes through with you as well as a teacher, because as you teach someone and as you transfer concepts from your head to someone else, there's this, you double your brain kind of double downs on what it already knows. So I think it's a good approach to kind of learn by teaching. And that being said, um, that's it for me today. I know we're kind of out of time, so I try to kind of squeeze everything into this short time. But thank you so much for hanging around. You can find me on Twitter, Olumide, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Lumi. That's man, your story there with Spark Labs or whatever it was.
Yeah, yes, Sparklog.
Sparkflow, what a fantastic story, man. Like really kind of living that value of just getting out there and helping people. And I cannot imagine how satisfying that would have been to see your engineers, the people that you've invested stepping up and kind of moving around. So that's gold medal to this man. Yeah, great stuff there. Um, one
Thank you.
thing I did want to ask you, just kind of having seen those young chaps, I don't know if it's kind of guys and girls, but the people that Spark plugs there, what was some of the most common kind of challenges you found that those junior engineers were making on their journey to kind of novice, amateur with no level to kind of maybe that intermediate level? What were some of the kind of main challenges and mistakes that people were making in their early career?
I think at Sparkplug, and I'm also speaking for myself, I think, being able to focus on an area and, focus through the whole cycle of learning. So there's this stage when, as you learn, there's this uphill battle where you're constantly trying to grasp concepts and you're struggling with the idea. And then sometimes people kind of fall off at that stage, right? However, there's a stage where there's a cliff where like, this kind of slows down. Where there's this aha moment where you really understand the core concept and the abstract concepts, and then you start to build things with those ideas. I think that
Hmm.
stage is where people start to coast and people start to like find value in what they're doing. So I've found students struggling at that uphill stage where they're just trying to get this concept about, like, for example, object-oriented programming and understanding classes and understanding what it means for polymorphism and this abstract concept at a very early stage. People tend to struggle there. However, if they're just able to focus and like communicate with their friends and like get mentorship to help them to go through this difficult stage, I can guarantee you that there's so much light at the end of the tunnel.
That's fantastic.